couple of more minutes and then we will start.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. Hey Deepa.
Hi Vidya.
Hi Dr. Neeru. Hi Amber. I don't think we've met.
No, we haven't.
Would you like to introduce Vidya to Amber?
I can't hear you guys. Hello?
Can you hear me
Hello?
now? Amber, can you hear me now?
Yeah, now I can hear you. Hi,
Okay,
Vidya. Good
wonderful.
evening.
Hey, good evening. Just give us a minute maybe, and I think we should be good to go.
Right.
Uh,
Vidya, were you there for any of the previous two sessions?
no, I wasn't, but I've heard a lot of the feedback. So, especially a few people who attended also. Yeah,
Should we start, Vidya?
I think so. We have, I think, 70 people already on the call, so not really
Yeah.
keep them waiting.
Yeah. All right. So good evening, everyone. Very happy to be with all of you on this call today. I understand it's a busy time for everyone, especially since the season has kicked in and ABP preparations are also going on at the same time. So I would like to thank all of you for finding time and joining us for this session today. This session is extremely crucial from compliance point of view as well. So last year, we used to learn and understand the nuances of POSH using an e-training module. However, this year we plan to make it more interactive by getting into a live session together with the subject matter experts. So now I would like to hand it over to Vidya just to set the context for this session. Over to you, Vidya.
Thanks, Pooja. And good afternoon, everyone, again. Like Deepa said, we completely value your time right now. Every minute away from the market and thinking about how we can sell more, get more to our consumers has to be time well spent. So very, very conscious of that. But we believe this is a very, very important agenda. We've been talking about inclusion, for some time now. For many of you who remember what our office looked like, we got together in March. Then we got together again in June to talk about inclusion, unconscious bias, and so on. And now we're back again to continue that conversation. And I think I just want to say that one of two foundational things for inclusion and an inclusive culture are, according to me, safety and sensitivity. And really today's session, where we have two experts talking to us, are actually on these two topics, and that how do we create a safe environment for our colleagues, especially in the context of sexual harassment. Many of us and the sensitivity, but there's also law involved, and it's important to be aware. Ignorance is not an excuse. So how can we be more aware? How can we be more sensitive is perhaps one key takeaway from this conversation today. And we have absolutely the best experts in the business to talk to us about it. Dr. Neeru Kumar and Mr. Ambar Rana both represent Ask Insights, a firm that is very well recognized in this space, and bring a lot of science and of course the law into this topic. So I don't want to waste too much time. I'm sure there's plenty to talk about. So I'm going to hand over to maybe Dr. Neeru to do a quick introductions, and then we kick off the session. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Deepa. Thank you, Vidya. And good evening, everybody. It's an absolute delight to be here for the third session of POSH and Gender Intelligence. So the session today is going to be very different from the usual POSH sessions that you hear about. We have tried to bring to you a concept that not only talks about the compliance and the legal part of sexual harassment, but it talks about the prevention part. And prevention, I believe there is no better way of prevention than mutual respect. So in the second half of the session, we're going to talk about how men and women together bring in a value to the business, and thereby the roles which were usually seen for centuries have now changed phenomenally. How do we understand that? How do we understand the business case? How do we understand the different wiring of men and women? And therefore create an environment so respectful, so safe, that such things become redundant. One doesn't even need to think about it. It's not a concern anymore. And when we address all of you here on this call today, my purpose is not to give you a gyan so that none of you indulge in anything of this kind, but rather I know that all of you are so aware already. All of you are so conscious and responsible already. So the intention is make you into champions of a change in the culture that will continue to provide safety for both the genders for a long time to come. Because once the culture develops, then it does cascade down. It cascades down for many years ahead, right? So that's the purpose of designing the talk today in a very, very unique way, in a very different way. I'll just take 2 minutes to give you my introduction and Ask Insights introduction, and then I'll hand it over to Ambar. So my name is Dr. Neeru Kumar. I'm a medical doctor. I'm a psychologist. I'm an NLP master practitioner, and I'm the founder of an organization called Ask Insights. I have been in the D&I space for the last 15 years, perhaps the first person to start the conversation of diversity and inclusion in India. And ever since that, it's been a very rich journey of having been associated with the best global thought leaders in the world. People like Dr. John Gray, who's the author of Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus. Then Howard Ross, who's literally the founder of the term unconscious biases, and many other such. We have also been very fortunate to be associated with many organizations where we provided consulting and training. To name a few: PepsiCo, Google, American Express, Microsoft, Tata Group, Aditya Birla Group, and many, many more. In these organizations, we've been working from the global leaders to the front line to the plant settings. So I myself am very familiar of all the stories and all the all the happenings and experiences that happen in each of these locations. I have been an advisor to many of the ICC boards. I am myself a part of the board of the Election Commission of India. I have also been recently appointed as the National Icon of India by the Election Commission. So this is a very brief background, and I think the time today is so short. We are going to discuss two important topics. So I'm going to straight away hand over to Amber for the first half of the session.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's session. I'll just introduce myself briefly as well. My name is Amber Rana. I am a litigating lawyer by profession. I run my own firm, of course, AM Rana Ventures, but today I'm here before you in the capacity of representing Ask Insights and a core team member of the legal cell of Ask Insights, which deals with all the trainings related to POSH. I'm also a podcaster and I run the first kind of a show known in India, a legal show, Know Your Kanun. Well, now let's start with what the today's training agenda is. And today's training is pretty interesting. It's going to be more about what POSH is, what is sexual harassment, and to just things put things into context and just to give you an oversight. There are so many legal definitions where we talk about what sexual harassment is, the Sexual Harassment Act, the CRPC, the IPC, so many things. They all read a particular definition. Now, just before we start the session, I'll request Deepa to just play out a couple of AVs, the audio visuals, from where we would want to set context to this workshop and maybe just get everybody on board. Right, so Deepa, could you just play the videos for us, please?
Sure, Amber. Just let me know if my screen is visible.
Absolutely.
Yes, Deepa, we can see it. We can see it.
Okay,
Yes.
all right.
Can you come in the office, please?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Come in.
Good afternoon, sir. I will get the work done by tomorrow, so you don't have to worry about it.
See, you are a very smart young woman. I just love how ambitious you are. Yeah. Had lunch?
No, sir.
Then have it with me. I will not take no for an answer. Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
Relax, relax. Okay. We are all friends here. Everyone. Yeah. So I noticed that you have applied for promotion.
Yes, sir. I have been bringing clients for the company and I've been taking these webinars and trainings. It's only reasonable to apply for a promotion.
Absolutely, absolutely. You've done a fantastic job with yourself, and the company owes you a lot. And I mean, to be honest, a good-looking, smart, and confident woman like you, it's not a surprise to me. But see, the thing is, I can only give out so many promotions in a given year. So, and I've already marked my promotions for this year. And during these times of COVID, you know how it is. I mean, the company is trying to maximize their profits, and so it's not going to be easy for me to justify an extra promotion during the times of COVID as well. So,
Oh, all right. Of course.
Arey, don't look so sad. Maybe I can try to find the money elsewhere.
I really hope you do, sir. I mean, I have been burning the midnight oil this year.
Yeah, I might be able to help you there, but you might have extra with me.
So more projects and meetings.
I mean, we will have to spend a lot of time together, client meetings in different hotels, the whole package. Yeah, it's not going to be easy, but if you are willing to put in the time and effort with me, maybe I can find that money for your promotion. But if you're not, well, it's not mandatory, of course. I need your consent before I can proceed with all this. And well, bad luck. What can we do? I'll just have to find someone else to put in all that effort. Cool. So let me know what you decide. Yeah. One second. Bhaiya, just send some coffee along with the food. Thank you.
Deepa, can we have the second one also then?
Yes, Amber, play. Please let me know once the screen is visible.
It is visible, Deepa, from my end at least.
Yes, Deepa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. Today we have our pitch meeting at TLF. I am supposed to present it today at their offices.
And are you ready with the presentation?
Yes, sir. Absolutely ready. And I am feeling confident about what our company will achieve today.
Great. Well done. Best of luck. And remember to be professional. Yes, and always smile. Yeah? You have a great and beautiful smile. Use it. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. We'll do so. Also, sir, I was thinking of some ideas I could implement on the upcoming Ahuja project, and it would be great if I can take a lead on that.
Array, first at least do this presentation. Then we can see what we can do for your next assignment. And I think we have given this project to Ayush, right? Yeah, it's Ayush. Uh, so it was, I mean, like, we all know, like, you are a woman after all, and you have certain responsibilities at your home. So I did not want to burden you like that. So it's fine. I mean, like, it's fine. I mean, Ayush can do the work. He is a great employee. So, yeah.
But sir, you said whomsoever bring in the most successful clients will get the lead for Ahuja project.
I said that, but see, no offense, but frankly speaking, I want someone who can put in all of their energy and focus into this project, because we will be getting all our bonuses from the results and the outcome that we achieve. So that is why I've given it to Ayush, because he does not have any responsibilities at home. You are a mother, so that is why I did not want to yeah, give this to you. But please don't think of me as someone who like sort of suppresses women. I love women. Just ask my wife. So yeah, I mean, like it's I know like she also faces the same issues, but it's a hard truth. What can we do? So yeah. So best of luck. Put some lipstick on those lips and just use this feature that God has given you, and the hearts will melt everywhere, I'm sure. Easy peasy. So I think that's it. I hope there's nothing else. Yeah. Okay. Goodbye.
Thanks, Deepa, for the videos and welcome, guys. Welcome to the session. I'm sure both the videos might have had some kind of response out of you guys, and there must be some of you willing to ask questions on this. Well, just keep the scenario in mind, and I'm going to now start presenting my presentation. And let's start this posh session with this note. Just I'm going to share my screen, guys. Let me know in case if there is a. Can you all see the screen? Can everybody see the screen?
No,
Not
Yep.
yet. Not yet.
Not yet.
It's just coming up, I think.
All right. Just let me know when you can see the screen, please.
I'm not sure if the others can, but I can't see it yet. There's a sort of a gray screen that's coming up, but we can't see the content yet.
You
Amber,
can't see
I
the
also can't see the screen.
you can't see the screen.
Yeah, I can't see the
Just
screen.
let me just re-project it once, and maybe then, Diva, if this is the issue, as we know, sadly on my side, maybe we could reshare the presentation again. Can you guys see it now?
Amber, same problem. Should I share from my end?
I think it makes sense. I'm really sorry, guys. Apologies from my side. Maybe internet is an issue. I suppose that's why I can't share the screen.
Yeah,
Right.
we can see it now.
Yes. So as I was talking about that, Posh has been explained so many times in so many different ways and manners, and our law talks about it. We've always seen it as more of a legal thing that okay, it's a legal training. We need to comply with it. So just let's keep on doing our e-trainings, and there I know how it works. That we keep pressing the next button until we have achieved our compliance score because we don't want our bonuses to get affected. We don't want to have a discretion problem on our current resume. Well, what is Porsche? And as I showed two videos, there were different scenarios, different aspects, and I like you guys to identify those aspects where you feel the aspect of Porsche comes in, which we will discuss towards the end. But to start with, definitely sexual harassment is not a women's thing. It's not a passing fad. It's not something to joke about. And as a lawyer, I can assure you that whenever I sit in that courtroom or I'm appearing for somebody, whether it's a corporate, whether it's an individual, there is always a thing that I get to know that it's just a women's thing, and that's why today we are standing where we are. Well, that's not correct. Sexual harassment is not about sex, but it is about the power and aggression which one has and one tends to show. And from a criminal perspective, from a lawyer's perspective, it's also about the general intent of the individual, which of course is based on conditioning. And Dr. Neeru is of course going to highlight, and ma'am's going to talk about those facts. But that clearly shows the bent of mind. So any general intent action, or as we use the term crime, definitely would include sexual harassment as an essential part of it because it is something
voice is
subconsciously
breaking.
that you're tempted to do.
But your voice is breaking.
Is my voice breaking? Hello? Is it better now?
Yes,
It,
I think there's a little bit of a lag, Amber. That seems to be the issue.
let me just reconnect my internet. Just again, apologies for this.
And there's a little bit of disturbance, roughness also somewhere.
Is it? Am I audible here again?
Yes, it's better, Amber. Yeah.
Yes, I
It's
think you can
better.
switch off your windows like it.
Yeah. Am I audible to everybody?
Yes, better. Much better.
Sorry, it's just this. Sorry again, guys. Apologies from my side for the technological challenge, but this reminds me more of my courtroom scenario on a daily basis when I request the judge to get back on his internet and address us because this is something we face commonly. So apologies from my side. Deepa, can we start from the yes? So as I was talking about, what sexual harassment is and what it isn't. So yes, and I spoke about general intent overall. Sexual harassment is definitely a big and an inclusive part of what the bent of mind is. It has got nothing to do with how one dresses. It has got nothing to do with how one looks. It is just about power and aggression subconsciously, which you would want to exercise upon given a chance, where you always had an intent to do an act, and as we say in law, the intent to commit a crime. Coming to our next slide, I like to describe in that what sexual harassment is. Now, what is sexual harassment? There are different definitions given in law. I'm not going to state the section and describe it, but I have just summarized it. It is nothing but physical contact and advantages of a sexual nature, a demand or even a request for sexual favors, someone making sexually charged remarks to another person, someone showing someone else pornography at work. I've used the term pornography because this is the most common that I tend to see when I have a complaint at hand. Any unwelcome physical, verbal, or non verbal conduct of a sexual nature of any kind. To summarize all of this from a corporate perspective, for a compliance perspective, I like to bring in certain factors that I've seen, while representing corporates, maybe at different levels in terms of litigation. To be honest with you, the most common ground is the one where someone is showing someone else uh, AV, maybe an audio visual of a nature which is pretty disproportionate, right? So let's say somebody's sitting in the bay and somebody is literally playing an AV on their phone. Well, it's not intended for you to be seen, but when you do it in office space and there is a chance that there's a possibility someone might hear it, it tantamounts to sexual harassment. And the most common one is brushing, which I called the Majnu clause, wherein I see people out of habit, and I see specifically with us in our corporate culture. I mean, I've seen just a little bit of it, maybe. Patting is a constant sign of appreciation that we see. So, any physical contact, mind it, any physical contact of that nature would tantamount to sexual harassment, whether you intended it or not, in case if you're making the person uncomfortable. Now, the catch 22 here is that your actions, your signs, your language, your verbal actions all should not make someone uncomfortable to a nature, especially a woman that you seem as an aggressor. You hamper her capacity to work in that environment. You make her feel intimidated with your actions. Some of the important factors that I've listed now, I'll come to them. They are about harassment and the sine qua non factors. What are these sine qua non factors? These are the base, the purient factors that exist and are the main core of what sexual harassment is. It can digress, it can be diverse, it could be ranging from, let's say, race and extend to sexual harassment. It could include religious beliefs, it could include your color, it could include your gender, it could include your physical or mental disability, your place of origin, your marital status, and so forth, so on, even your source of income. Now you might be wondering, how can these be grounds of sexual harassment? Because the typical concept of sexual harassment which we have in our mind is pretty much stuck to the fact that you whistled to a woman, you touched a woman, you did something which was obscene, right? And obscenity has got everything to do with it. Well, trust me, that's not true. There are different interpretations in law about what sexual harassment is and what are these factors that we're talking about. So some of these factors, let me just highlight. Specifically, color. Passing of a comment in all intent without being maybe serious about it in a joking manner, that I prefer women of a particular color. These are strong words, and these are the words I've heard from the top corporate guys when representing themselves in the courts. someone who uses color as one of the basis to describe a woman, that I prefer someone. So making something obscene by using it at the base purient level to make it a part of your context is something which is definitely sexual harassment. Source of income, pretty easy. I've seen people commenting, especially in Mumbai, in one of the matters, and I'll again narrate and digress a little in saying this, that my wife belongs to the, or I would say my spouse belongs to the fashion and the movie industry. And in one of the interactions, I had been representing one of the clients where someone had said that this individual's XYZ source of income turns me on. Now, wow, that was a really, really shocker for me. But the court interpreted it and said it is sexual harassment, even though it is words uttered under a condition of actual awe of that individual. Now you can see how small the difference is, right? So whether it's your marital status, given an example, I might say, well, I preferred a certain kind of individual in my life, and I choose between the marital status, and that really is something I look forward to in my preference. Terms like these that generally you use, or indirectly maybe I say, well, isn't she married? That's quite interesting. That sounds attractive to me. Things like these, words like these, are a big no no in all scenarios. It's something that can be really, really touchy, something which has a very, very low level of differentiation and standards of differentiation. Physical or mental disability, such a big contributory factors. People who are, suffering from any kind of physical or mental disability or are differently abled are subject to such cruel treatment because they are considered as easy praise. And on that note, if I like to digress a little and again narrate an incident, most of the people, as per the National, the Criminal Records Bureau (NCRB), people in old age homes, especially women and men, uh, who are disabled, who are suffering from old age, are subjugated to sexual harassment, which include organ touching, which includes touching of their private parts while they are incapacitated, or maybe in a wheelchair or on a bed being given bath by an attendant. So sexual harassment can not only go by words, but such treatment as well. And the exception claimed by the attendants here was that I did it under the context that I was washing and cleaning the person. So you can see how it can flow from one point to the other. Given a workplace scenario, any verbal action, any intent that this person is somewhat under my control would tantamount to sexual harassment. Well, these are some of the basic factors and most important factors. And coming to our next slide, I like to illustrate more on that. Deepa, can we have the next slide?
Is the slide visible, Amber? I've changed the slide.
Yes. Now it is visible to the slide. Forms of workplace sexual harassment, the quid pro quo, the culprit in place, and the adversarial work environment. Quid pro quo, pretty simple, this for that. It implies any such explicit promise of preferential or detrimental treatment in employment. Now you would be wondering, how can it be so explicit in terms of it being detrimental treatment in employment? Well, it might not be detrimental for you, the one who's seeking the advantage, or one who's the aggressor, but for someone who has to cross that boundary and be subjugated to this, it is detrimental in that effect to that person in terms of compromising. Also, there is a fine line of difference here. Some people say, well, I did not do it. It was willing from the other party's side as well. And what does that mean? That does not absolve you of this particular offense. It does not absolve you of saying that it was not sexual harassment. In case if this act was done and the other party was indeed a part to it due to some or other reasons, if they come up with those reasons, if they present those reasons, it's just the freedom of conscience that they need, that they definitely believe they had to do this in account to achieve something, and they in their minds were compelled to comply with the XYZ person to do this act. So then it's more than what meets your eye here in terms of letters and the interpretation. Adversum work environment. Pretty simple. What is an adversum work environment? The Latin term adversum, of course, being hostile, adverse in terms of being difficult, being tough, being where you do not have the protection of life, liberty, and security, right? Creation of hostile, intimidating, or an offensive work environment is a big no-no. I was part of one of the big fours for the early life of my career, and I would not like to name the big four, but I had a big issue where one of the senior managers had acted on a particular incident, and he used the term "do not smile or I'll make you cry" to one of the female employees in that department, and that very much fits here in this scenario. That is an adverse work environment, creating hostile, intimidating, or an offensive work environment. It need not be sexual in nature, but in case if it is one which is intimidating in such a manner, it can really put you into a bad space. Humiliating treatment likely to affect health and safety. Health does not involve physical health, it also includes medical health to a great variety of reasons. So, in case due to your actions you're stressing someone out, putting someone into a spot, it is an adverse work environment, and you should refrain completely from exercising such a power which you have. Another interesting fact I'd like to lay before you guys here is generally people say that how can this be an adverse work environment? When you come to office, you must realize it's a professional workplace. There is bound to be pressure. Where is that thin difference of life where, of thin difference or thin line of difference, I would say, where you discriminate, okay, this would not be pressure and this would be pressure. That's not for us to decide. What is for us to decide is to control our behavior, on which we can definitely put up a tag as to this would tantamount or this would lead to an aggressive behavior which might create an hostile or an intimidating environment. Trying to leave a female employee or drop her off back to her home without her consent is also sexual harassment, or re-asking of that question again and again. You might have done it with all good words, good intention, out of all the good reasons, totally agreeable, totally acceptable. And I think women also do understand and men do understand to an extent what the limit is. But doing that on a recurring basis out of your good intent, but it might just put that person into an hostile spot. So that would also tantamount to an adverse work environment. There is a big textile group in Mumbai. There was a litigation which me and my elder brother, who's a senior partner, we were to attend for. And trust me, it's a very well-known big textile brand. The only issue was that one of the female employees, she used to stay in a place called Navi Mumbai, and she had to travel to South Mumbai around Fort area, and this gentleman requested to drop her every day. One fine day, she said, "This is quite intimidating to me. I've been saying no to you. I totally appreciate your help in this scenario." You know what the court ruled? The court ruled, well, we do need savers, but we do not need favors, and that's the term in the judgment which was used. So, guys, this is adverse work environment. Deepa, we'll move to the next slide and take it forward from there. There you go. Actus beware. Behavior pattern at work. Now, what is actus reus? Actus reus in law, in a legal language, and this is the only legal language I'll be using today instead of sections and clauses. Actus reus is an action which is definitive of what you intended to do. So beware of these actions. And there is a variety of heads under which we're talking about actions. These are not exhaustive lists that I have compiled here, but this is out of experience that I see daily into my litigation career that I have, you know, compiled these for you. We'll start with the visual ones first, and the most interesting in that aspect is ogling. You see staring, posters, magazines, flyers, calendars. Office space, I'll request all to treat as office space. I see bays where people have done up their bays nicely. Of course, work is your life these days, and that's how we all are incorporated into our corporate jobs. But do not make your particular work bay or bay area as a place where you can just put up everything and anything you want. So I'm covering the posters and the magazines part first because that's the most common one that makes people, uh, you know, feel offended about it. And calendars, of course. Big media house where I do podcast. There was a neighboring house. I'll name the house Z House. Uh, I had gone there for a podcast. I was recording a session with one of the actors. Very common thing that came to my forefront was a magazine which had Kingfisher calendar thing written on it, posted on the wall. First question I asked the individual was, "Sir, this is a private space. Do you agree or do not agree?" The individual said, "Well, sir, it's an office space, but I have my private area." I said, "This is offensive what you've put up." putting up of magazines, posters, which are a little on the higher side of things, little explicit, little obscene. I use the term obscene in this way because it might not be offensive for you, but it might be offensive for someone who's there around that area looking at that particular piece of literature around you. So posters, magazines is a big no-no. People go on trips. People go on exclusive trips. Yes, you're a bachelor, you're traveling, fair enough. You have had your share of fun by traveling around the world. And you would like to bring back memories to your particular desk space, fair enough. But do not put up such stuff which is explicit. Example, pretty simple example. You go to Gold Coast, you do not put up stuff such as photos from Hooters drinking with I would say waitresses with their big jugs of beer in their hand. It's a big no-no. Scantily clad photographs of people around you, etc. It's a big no-no. There's a thin line of difference, but it's a no-no. With that, I like to close these two matters of posters, magazines, and calendars. I like to come now on ogling and staring. The most easy excuse one can have is, I was not ogling at you. I was thinking. And I was thinking and I was lost in my thoughts that my eyes grazed upon you and you thought I'm looking at you. Do not think that you are so attractive that I was looking at you. I had a gentleman who said something very, very drastic, though he said it in a light way. But trust me, it was an offense. And the court ruled on it. Example of it, pretty simple. The gentleman said, sir, in your opinion, do you feel I would molest someone, all right, and such a female by ogling at her when she does not have the physical attractiveness that I need for her to molest? Now, can you believe the individual saying that? Ogling and staring is a big no-no. You might want to ogle at walls. You've got your chairs, you've got your laptop, you've got the sky, you've got the whole world to ogle and stare at. Do not stare at people. Especially Indian workspaces, we are so used to staring. We can stare someone right out to the office if they are new to the office. Our eyes follow them to where they are going and what they are doing. Trust me, if someone catches you from the other side of that glare or a stare, it can put you in bad space. And on a lighter note, if you're looking to ask out that person, vice versa, whether uh, uh, a male or a female, ogling and staring will not help. Trust me, that used to work in college. That was on a lighter note. Now I like to come on the verbal side of things. First question: request for dates, questions about personal life, lewd commentary, dirty and sexual jokes, whistling. Such common examples. Requesting for dates, it's a big no-no in office space. You want to go smoke outside? Well, that will also count as an office space. Find a place where you two are in a personal space where there is no office decorum or no office space being extended, and there you can do whatever you would want and show your love interest. But in offices, requesting for dates is a big no-no. Questions about personal life, trying to be friendly, asking all the details that you need, it's a big no-no. Lewd comments. You might be sitting in a group of people together and laughing about a particular photograph on your laptop. You might be laughing about of a person who's sitting right across the bay, and you pass a comment which is a little borderline in terms of being lewd or offensive. It's a big no-no. These comments are a big no-no. In the labor industry, especially in the manufacturing sector, when you're on a floor, there's a floor manager. I've heard the kind of conversation they have, but they do have certain things in place which restrains everybody from commenting and saying such stuff. But there are instances where you're passing through a bay, you've had a bad day, and you might just abuse in a particular manner, which can put someone in a tight spot. Do not use such words. Sexual jokes, whistling. That's another that's another thing that I like to highlight about. Jokes with peers and friends is a different ballgame. Jokes being said amongst the Bay members, which you might think everybody would be okay with, is a big no-no, right? There are no hard and fast rules to it. It is pretty simple. Yes, it might be funny. It might tickle your funny bone. It might tickle your teammates' bone if you're a team leader, but it might just be offensive to the newcomer who's joined your office and feels intimidated by such a joke. Such jokes are a big no-no. I would request, right? So it's a very fine thin line. Whistling again, whether it's office or it's outside, it's a big no-no. You see written subject, the next head, love poems, love letters, obscene poem, obscene letters, cards, emails, internet, any medium where you express yourself uh, with your literary skills, please refrain yourself from doing So do not put any such content out there which can get you into trouble. Any kind of literary content which meets this criteria is a big no-no. Touching, violating space. Yes, in office space, there is private space. I have seen, as an example, people tend to sit on chairs and drag their chairs right next to you in your face, trying to explain to you a particular project, a deadline, trying to explain to you a particular slide, whatever the nature of work, maybe it might be a proposal as well. It is a big no no. You cannot do that. You need to respect space. You need to ask the other person whether they are comfortable in doing so. Most of the juniors don't tend to say anything at all because in entirety it tends to violate, and they feel that if they speak up now there'll be repercussions to the same. Well, it does put someone into a physical state of affairs in such a manner. There are people who go into depression because of such kind of behavior. Do not do this in office space. It's a big no-no. Also, please realize if someone is doing this to you, you have the full right to approach the given mechanisms. Grabbing, pinching, caressing, kissing. Of course, these are more extreme measures, but they also do fall in. Patting, the patting behavior is such a no-no in most of the context. When in doubt, I always use this term as a lawyer. When in doubt, do not commit to the action. You know that the other person has done a good job. You know it's a wonderful job. You want to pat that person no matter how friendly you are, but you must know what's the difference there. In case if you're in doubt yourself whether I should pat or not, do not pat that person on the back or on the shoulder or anywhere where you feel like patting, right? Power and force, of course, being the extreme forms, rape, physical assault, using position to request dates, sex, of course, yes, another common scenario for people with senior management, requesting dates directly, indirectly, through actions. People in offsite tend to go a little offhand and try to get friendly. They ask out for dates, try to put themselves out there. Offsite is not your personal party space. It is again an office space. Restrict yourself from doing so, right? Threatening loss of job, giving out explicit threats, promising something in turn, all of these are a big no-no. Now, if I come down towards the slide, you'll see offensive conduct may be a violation and demands are a violation in all cases. There are two heads I've made. The first section, which is the offensive conduct may be a violation, talks about individual perceptions and reactions that determine harassment. Behaviors unwanted by recipient may be harassment. Behaviors may not be intended to harass. Pretty simple. You might be very happy that particular day and you wanted to pat that person in a good mood. Hey, that you did a very good job here, and we're more than happy to appreciate you on this. Please do not do that. You might not be intending to do it, but you're putting someone into a bad space. This is a big no no in office. People taking it does not mean at all that they are comfortable with it. Their silence is also a violation of their privacy. Demands. Pretty simple example. Demands are a violation in all cases. Yes, any kind of demand which is put forward in any manner, no matter whether intended, unintended, it is in all sections considered as an intentional thing, a general intent. So it's a big no-no. Now moving to the next slide.
Deepa, I think there's a little bit of a lag, so we're not seeing
Is
the
it
next slide yet.
is it visible? Vidya, I have changed the slide.
No, I cannot see it. There's a
Yeah,
lag,
it's
I
not
think.
yet changed. I think there's some lag, yeah.
Let me reshare it again.
While the slide is changing, Amber, do you mind just taking a question?
Yes, sure. I'll just see that.
Yeah, so I was wondering, I think one of the things that people really are aware of is Posh specifically in the context of sexual harassment against women. So men
Yes.
acting against women. Is there also do you also come across cases which are covered under this law, which may be, let's say, against men, whether it's women against men or men against men? Could you just throw some light on that, perhaps?
Yes, so very nicely put by you in this context, Vidya, and I'd like to bring to the knowledge of everybody. Please, I'm going to keep it on a lighter note as well. Men, yes, we do suffer from harassment, and it's such a sad, sorry state of affairs that I do get a lot of complaints where people say, "Sir, what do I do in the legal scenario? I've been harassed here." Well, you do not need a posh act in that scenario. There is no posh act to that effect, sadly, for the Indian men in the workspace. But yes, there is a route where under Indian Penal Code you can file an FIR for falsifying an FIR against you or filing of a false FIR against you, right? That is one of the ways. The other way is the NCRB data, which I haven't, sadly, I didn't share it today with anybody and I've not put up in my slides, but I was talking to Neeru ma'am about it. At least in Bangalore as a city, with being the most open about everything, there is at least 15% that has been recorded as a reverse sexual harassment ratio, whereas men have been harassed by women in position in order to exacerbate a particular situation or get them into a particular wound that they have to act. There was a movie, I think a Bollywood movie also made onto this, which was very much true. It happens in the Indian scenario completely. Now, what do you do about it? If your posh committee is not listening to you, where you put in, let's say, a letter or maybe a complaint saying that I am being harassed, and they say, well, we do not know guidelines. Well, as far as gender neutrality of law is concerned, do not worry, the POSH Act is not the issue. That complaint which has been put can be seen into different contexts, whether it is, I'm going to talk about those sections, whether it is IPC, whether it is your labor code, you can definitely access the courts. But yes, it is remote. And sadly, due to our conditioning, we also do not believe that men equally face the issue.
Thanks, Amber. Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, no, and now I'll get back to this slide, which is about the harassment costs. Now let's think from a business perspective. What are these costs? Cost to the employee, cost to the employer. What are these costs and how do they affect you? Well, to the employer, it creates a lot of poor morale. What does it lead to in turn? It leads to low productivity. It leads to absenteeism. It leads to staff turnover. It leads to litigation, damaged public image, investigation by human right, bodies, financial strength being affected. So many of your supply chain members or your vendors will get affected. Company pride. I'll give you a very common example. Uh, there's a company called Subaru. It's a Japanese company and now, of course, operating widely across the world. It's been there in rally racing. It's a car manufacturer company. It had put a policy in place, and as we know how Japanese firms operate, it tend to put women on a little back foot in terms of its policy making, and that in turn led to quitting of the most number of female employees from that particular workspace. Subaru thought over it and said, what is this? How come this is something that we have faced? So, in turn, what they did, they implemented a policy where they made cars only for women, promoting both genders. In turn, they saw the maximum sales that took place that year in Subaru in terms of the cars they sold. So you see how you cut off one portion of your workforce by doing an action which you think might just be a normal silly action, but it is not. It has deep consequences to it. Litigation. You need to hire a lawyer like me, and I charge by the hour. Let's take it like that. It's a litigation cost for the firm. There is a staff turnover problem. You do not have consistency in your goal teams, in your managerial teams. All of these damage the employer. Now, cost to the employee. Of course, company works on the concept of employee employer being both the wheels. What in terms of employee? Just look at the effects of that. The emotional distress, the loss of self-esteem, embarrassment, anger, illness, exclusion from groups, loss of income, increased absenteeism, disruption of career for someone who's gone through this. And let me tell you how sad it was. There were in camera proceedings that were happening, and they happened in Pune. I was appearing in those in camera proceedings with a senior lawyer. And while those proceedings, a simple question was asked by the judge that, ma'am, what did you feel when the XYZ gentleman, he was behind a curtain, said a question to you, which was this, that that particular human being broke down in tears and could not control her anxiety, could not control her emotional distress that was caused because of that. Now, such a small thing, just utterance of word caused that to that particular scenario. So you can imagine in person what it does and how detrimental it is to a team. It takes time for everybody to develop a sync amongst the team. It takes time to build a common goal. It takes time to align everybody. Till the time you're working in internal compartmentalized mindsets or scenarios where you feel that this is the way to go. We should not care about posh. Posh is just a training. Trust me, it's going to have very, very bad effects. Another example I like to bring forward here. There is a lot of in the consultancy side of things, there's a lot of demand where employees have to go to constantly departments, customs departments, excise departments. They need to go to various other GST departments. Women feel anxious all the time to go to these departments because men say that okay, you need to go alone. I'm just using an example. You need to go alone. Okay, you don't need to go there because there might be a case of sexual harassment. All right, dress properly when you go there. If you don't appropriately dress, people will stare at you. You are actually falling in the definition of sexual harassment. You're creating that anxiety that is desisting that person from going forward. So please keep that in mind when you do that. That you do not, put your employees in a team in a fixed spot, right? So these are some of the indicators I have, and I like to now come to the next slide. Deepa, can we have the next slide, please?
Is it visible, Amber?
No, I cannot see it. Maybe there's a yes. There you go. All right, couple of examples. Majnu's at work, and these are the most typical common scenarios and caricatures that I've picked up and put here. Uh, and specifically, scenario number one. Trust me, it happens in courts also. We take adverse action against it all the time. It is tonight. I'm using the words given here. Tonight, our little project team will do great work, won't it? Little project team, such a common word used to denote maybe person from the other gender, used to denote maybe the workspace you have, and look at the action of that individual holding the chair and trying to communicate something. Pretty common scenario. This might not be a sexual advance as it is mentioned in the caricature, but the words have done the trick here. Scenario number two, sexy, 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 mujhe log bole, singing embarrassing film songs. Yes, you're happy, you've been promoted, you've been given something. You're in your jive, you're walking to your car, you're walking through your corridor or the lobby of the office, and you tend to end up into a song maybe or humming of a sorts. It's a big no-no. You might not be intending it, but it's going to put you in a fixed spot. Third scenario, as I discussed earlier, you're just a woman, we need a man for this assignment. Discriminating on the basis of gender, especially in consultancies where women have to interact with departmental officers. And trust me, government departments have more representatives in terms of men. It is such a difficult spot for them to go and interact with a superintendent, with a commissioner, with whoever there is in the department. And men tend to say in their teams, Yar, aap mat jao, you are not needed for this assignment. Let Amber go and do it. You handle the back end of things. You can imagine what this discrimination does to that particular person and what spot you're putting them in. Sometimes I even heard people saying, yeah, can you take this particular XYZ women along with you so that they can see what happens in the departments. If they feel comfortable, we'll put them there, we'll not put them there. This is definitely a discrimination you're attempting, and on the basis of gender, it's a big no-no. So all three scenarios, these are just simple examples, but they do come into picture. Can we have the next slide, Deepa?
Is it visible, Amber?
No, I think there's a lag at my end, maybe. I'm just waiting for it to.
It's up now.
Yes, now I can see it. Aggrieved woman, workplace, and where it extends to. Who's an aggrieved woman? All kinds of employees that you have at workplace, are they all falling under the definition of an aggrieved woman? Yes, they are. Whether it's a regular employee, temporary employee, daily wages, ad hoc, office boy, contractor, somebody who's coming to come and visit your office, client who's attending your office, you know, uh, maybe let's say a probationer, a trainee who's come to your office, they all fall into this definition of an aggrieved woman. The next question that I have, which most people tend to don't realize, is workplace. Where does the workplace extend to? We know in generic sense what workspace is and where it and where all it applies to, right? Your floors down below, your bay area, whatever it is, but it extends to a whole lot more. Office parties, off-sites, outbound trainings, client meetings, training sessions, travel for office purposes. Let me also tell you, hiring of an Uber and where you raise expense for your company, there is a possibility in case if that Uber driver misbehaves you, constructive interpretation has been given by court that an Uber which is given by office will fall within the definition of workplace. and you can hold the office space accountable in case something untowardly happens with you. And this was given by the Mumbai High Court in 2019 after a series of violations happened in an IT office in Navi Mumbai. So workplace extends to all these places as well, right? Whether it is your smallest level of employee to your workplace, to your outbound trainings, off-site trainings, as simple as that, where you are doing a constructive activity, a group activity into an off-site where you say, well, okay, let's not include women in this because the ball might hurt the woman while we are playing cricket. It's a big discrimination. It tantamounts to sexual harassment. Deepa, can we have the next slide, please?
But you have to wind up in 1 or 2 minutes.
Yes, we are on the second last slide, and we'll just wind up on that.
Amber, is it visible?
I'm just waiting for the slide to turn.
We can see it now, Deepa.
Why I still have a lag? There you go. I have it. Internal Complaints Committee. The most important aspect. I'm not going to run into text to try to explain to you in terms of text what's written. I'm going to explain to you what are the important factors which every internal complaints committee must have in mind when they're operating in their legal capacity. First and foremost is having the right quorum of members. You know, your presiding officers, your normal members, your external members. Presiding officer, of course, has to be a woman from a senior leadership role within the body. Members have to be, of course, there. There have to be two members from amongst the employees. There has to be an external member. It could be a lawyer. It could be an NGO. There has to be also something even more important, which is rotation of employees. You must have your regular members change after every 3 years so everybody is sensitized. The basic deficit issue of internal complaints committee is that it does not know the quorum in which it should work. It does not know the manner in which it should work. It does not mention the employees are ill informed, the members are informed as to the quorum and who should be there and who should not be there. Complaint process. The most important process of the internal complaints committee is the complaint process. This is what is the backbone. Filing of 6 written complaints. How do you file your complaint? I have not written here, but even an email would comply as a written complaint. You need to file at least 6 copies along with supporting documents, name and addresses of witnesses. This must be filed within at least 3 months of the incident, right? Once you do that, it is the duty of your employer to provide that complaint which you have provided to the respondent, which is the aggressor, within a period of 7 days. Once that happens, you are bound to receive a copy and summary within a period of 10 days along with all the documentation that you have provided as a summary of that complaint that yes, it has been received, statements have been recorded, and this is what we have arrived at. Apart from this process, there is something called as a zero FIR, which is known as the FIR of no place and substance, no jurisdiction. You can file it from anywhere, any place. You can file it through your friends, family, if you're intimidated to file it alone. You can file it through your mom, dad. You can file it after a period of 3 months as well, in case you're not comfortable mentally to file it. That is the easiest way to go forward in case if you feel your complaint process has failed. Completion of the inquiry. The most important, always ask why this has not happened. In case you feel your inquiry has not completed, this is the process that the inquiry should follow in an ICC. It has to be completed in 90 days. Inquiry report has to be given in 10 days from completion of inquiry, and the employer is required to give you a redressal within a period of 60 days and implement that in order to give effect to the complaint which has come to you. And lastly, an appeal lies to this decision, which is before the committee. This is within a period of 90 days, but it also extends to trial courts, civil courts, and to your high court. So do not restrain from appealing. Please appeal apart from your office process. If you fail to do so, we are there sitting in courts to help you out. So this slide is just mostly about the structure and the complaint process. If I'd like to come to the last slide now and conclude this.
Yes, last slide is up, Amber.
All right. So the last slide, I'm sure you can see certain, though I can't see the slide, but I can tell you there are certain factors and figures that why we need to fight with this. Facts before you. 70% of women do not report sexual harassment. Seen in court, seen from my own eyes, this is true as part of your corporate corporate engagement and compliance, we all submit documents, but that's not true. There has been a 54% rise in sexual harassment. The conviction rate, if you read here, is just 6.3% on 100,000 that is there. Similarly, 45% companies in India are non-compliant with sexual harassment, and so forth, so on. In terms of internal complaint committee, there is deficiency in the members. Unknown legislations that we don't know of apart from POSH. The She Box initiative is just a government initiative. This is run by the central government, Ministry of Child and Welfare. If your office does not record your complaints, please reach out to them. They will take it down. SheBox is an electronic email system where you put your redressals, your complaints, and they look into it. Indian Penal Code, saving section 354A, which talks about stalking, voyeurism, about criminal intimidation, and so forth, so on. In case your committee fails to deal with that, please go with section 354A. All the offenses are non-bailable. And the industrial employment, of course, being the last. These are acts undermeant required by statutory bodies where you need to comply with all of these laws as I speak about. And with that, I'd like to conclude this part of the POSH training and hand over to Dr. Neeru. Apologies once again for certain delays, and we'll take the questions towards the end. Thank you, everybody, for listening out here.
Thank you, Amber. That was very comprehensive and very informative. So as we discussed right in the beginning, I'm going to talk to you about the unconscious bias in the gender intelligence part of it. But before I do that, we did mention, Vidya brought up a question, and we did mention about reverse harassment happening. We usually talk about harassment happening from man to woman, but there was a discussion on it happening the other way around also. So that is not unheard of. It's like, but also I'd like to bring out that today we all know
Hello. Yeah. All right. I don't mind. Yeah. I can do that in case if there are questions. All
I think that's something that we all need to relook and think about today, that it can be very much a reality. And with more and more people coming out and having less hesitation in declaring that they're part of the LGBTQ community, I think that can also be something which will need more and more attention as time goes by. So that's about that. And now I will put up my presentation and we can talk a little bit about.
Dr. Neeru, as you're bringing that up, I think also talking about this in the context of, our new remote world would also be really helpful,
Yes,
given that we're
yes.
not physically with each other, but what does this mean in the context of virtual working? Yeah, thank you.
Yes, thank you, Deepa. That's a very relevant point, because being a coach and a counselor, I'm hearing these things in these times. In the last 2-3 months, there's a real increase in the distress caused to people by inappropriate virtual interaction. We did see the video where we saw this guy wearing a vest and talking, or just out of bed and talking, and all his mannerisms and postures were not at all desirable. So this is happening very much in the real life. And I'm having women report to me saying that people are inappropriately dressed. They may be talking late night. They may be talking just when they're right out of bed. And the whole scenario looks very offensive. They might be having objects or things behind them, which is not appropriate. They may be having some kind of music playing at the background, which is not appropriate. Their posture may be very inappropriate, like they may be lounging like this and talking, which is again very distressful. Now, what is happening is that as it is, people are very worried about their jobs at this point of time. People are very worried about their positioning at this point of time. And nobody wants to risk up now creating things which can really topple the cart even further. Therefore, women who are facing this, and if I tell them and encourage them to bring it up with the organization, they say, no, I don't want to do that at this point of time at all. So I think that's another thing that may be done consciously or it may be done unconsciously, but we have to be very, very mindful of our virtual etiquettes, I would say. Right? Even calling late in the night, I think, unless it is really necessary, should not be done. All right. Now let's come to these two aspects, nuances. What is the part that unconscious bias has to play in it, and what is the part that gender intelligence has to play in it? Coming to the unconscious bias, we all know that biases today are something that is we understand as being a scientific phenomenon of the brain. Good people have biases. It's not only bad people have biases. Everybody has biases. If you have a brain, then you have biases, right? And how do biases occur? Because our brain is bombarded with 11 million pieces of information at any one time. We deal with 40 to 50 pieces of information. So we filter out some things and let others in. And that can be useful for survival. It's very good for survival. But it can also lead to stereotyping. It can also lead to perceptions which may now need to be modulated. For example, a lot of our beliefs come from our growing up years. They come from our culture. And if we have seen mostly women in the role of homemakers, then that's an impression which is in our mind, whether it is conscious or unconscious, but it just stays there, right? And therefore, when we're seeing more and more women coming into the workplace, to accept them as equal business partners may be hard for some people. Again, we may not even realize that that's happening, but that leads to something which we may call objectification, or it may lead to taking them less seriously than the men. So what is a bias? It's a preference for a group based on attitudes and stereotypes. Amber mentioned the little scenario where he said, oh, you're just a woman. Or if there are men who like to be with men, or there are women who like to be with women, if those preferences are there, then the healthy interaction between men and women may get hampered. The more we interact with each other like a group, the more we interact with each other to include, even if the other gender is in a minority. There may be a group of women and there may be just one man on the team. But do we make that little extra effort to include that person into the team? Unless we do that, the interaction does not come up, right? So this also leads to stereotypes. What is stereotypes? Stereotypes is ascribing attributes or role to a group based on our limited experience. It's not based on research, it's not based on science, but it is based on our limited experience of the reality of that group. So again, if we consider man as the primary breadwinner, or we consider woman as the primary caretaker of the house, that becomes an impression which leads to a stereotyping. Women are too emotional. Men are insensitive. Or even labeling that all men have bad intentions. Sometimes we do that. And that may lead to a perception that there has been a harassment, whereas there may have been none. So women may have this thing in the back of their mind that men are after one thing only. Men are after sex only, right? If they have that kind of, due to their own childhood experiences or due to the stereotypes, that may lead to an altered perception or a bias. So bias, again, I'm saying it's not only that men have biases vis-a-vis women, women also have biases vis-a-vis men. So these days, when I do gender intelligence workshops, men are always telling me that, I feel I have to walk on eggshells. I feel I have to be extra careful. And with the Me Too movements happening and all these other things, the posh thing happening, people are scared. Men are saying, I don't even know how to healthily interact with my women colleagues. Do I compliment them? Do I not compliment them? Do I interact with them? Do I not interact with them? Do I ask them out for late evening parties? Do I not ask them out for late evening parties, right? So there is a lot of concern there. And I think biases and stereotypes play a very important role on what a healthy perception we have of each other. Biases may be conscious or unconscious, they may be implicit or they may be explicit. So a lot of the things that are going on in our mind, we're not even aware of, right? That's the unconscious bias. But it's good to know that we see these things through our lenses, layers, and legacies. What are some of the filters? Our past experience. So, our past experience of maybe another organization, maybe our college years. So, if we've had, let's say, a woman has had an experience of men not being appropriate, then she walks into another environment and she's already got that filter in her head thinking that she has to stay away from men, or maybe they're hitting upon her. Similarly, men may have the past experience of women not taking work seriously and therefore start comparing all women similarly and thinking women are here just for the fun of it. This is a pastime for women. This is a hobby for women. It's a secondary income for women. They're not here for long. All those things will prevent us from taking our colleagues as serious business partners. It also depends on the compelling way a story is narrated. I've seen many a case where people will say, this woman is available. And it also may have a lot to do with the way she dresses. So in India, it's fairly new for us to see women wearing short dresses, right? Whereas in other parts of the world, it's been there forever. So when we have not seen in our growing up years, our mothers, our sisters, our family members wearing short dresses, it may just lead to a bias or a perception that if a woman is wearing a dress, then she's easily available, right? And then the way that everyone else, the compelling way in which everyone else is talking about that individual, our own vision may also get colored accordingly. And again, I'd like to bring out, sometimes it may be conscious, sometimes it may be unconscious. We just have to be a little introspective and mindful of that. Then the perception of an organizational culture. So you may walk into an organization and hear people say, here women are here for the fun of it, or here the women are very cool, or they're very bindas, or they're very available. These kind of conversations may be floating around. And I said right in the beginning that you're the sponsors of change. I know that there are some very senior all today, and I think it becomes imperative for the leaders to set a tone that in case such a conversation or air is happening, or if you hear somebody laughingly talk about it, that's the place to nip it in the bud. So what could be the unconscious bias of the offender? I spoke about objectification. Just to clarify, objectification means when you use words like tota, ye to tota hai, or when you think of women and only as pretty objects, this eye candy, all those kind of things are objectification. Then hierarchy. There are a certain set of people who feel that because you are in a position of seniority, it gives you a greater right to laugh and joke with women, or say once in a while you said something inappropriate and it's okay. And the last one is resentment. And this happens in both the ways. When you have a resentment against a person, vis-a-vis the offender, it might turn out that you take it out in the form of a harassment of kinds. It also happens the reverse way. I have seen many cases where women have filed inappropriate complaints based on the fact that she was maybe given a bad feedback, or she doesn't like the interaction that's happening with the other person. And the only way she knows she has power and a strong point is to file a sexual harassment complaint. Very quickly, I'll give you an example. I have a plant setting where there was a doctor there, and this person who was in my workshop, a man, he said that I went to the clinic, I was very sick, and there was an OPD number there. My number was around number 70. At that exact precise moment, I got a call from my boss and I had to step out. When I came back, I waited for my turn till the end, till everybody had shown the doctor. He says, when I went in, the doctor was a lady doctor, and she says, the time is up and I can't see you anymore. He said, look, you have to give me first aid. I'm very sick. I've got fever. I've got a cold. She says, don't you hear me? I cannot see you anymore. If you did not come in your turn, now just get out. He says, doctor, you have to give me first aid. It was a very important call that I took at that time. I can't go back. Where should I go? She says, will you get out or no? Eventually, he said, okay, I'll have to take this up. But you know what? Before he could take it up, she filed for a sexual harassment case. totally not true at all. So such things, resentment can work both ways. What is the conditioning of the victim? It's a lot to do with the role models. And here I would say it's about, and whether again, I'm not specifying the gender, but there is a little trend that we'll go into. It is the role models that you have seen, while growing up. If you've seen role models who are okay, who feel safe enough in bringing up inappropriate things, then you would be able to do so too. If you have not seen role models who are able to bring up these things strongly and who have too much of a concern or are a little submissive, then you will not bring it up. Now, if we take it specifically to women, the conditioning so far in a society which has been largely patriarchal is that women are less expressive of or less assertive about certain issues than they should be. And there are a large number of women who will not speak up, and their reasons may be many, that I have come to work with a lot of difficulty. My in-laws will not let me work if I complain. My parents will not let me work if I complain. I need that money to be independent. And that makes them then stay back from limiting beliefs about oneself. It's a big one. If you have a situation in your mind which you feel that you're not entitled to, or you don't have the right to bring up this issue, then you're not going to bring up this issue. Yeah. So again, in women, we have an entity called the imposter syndrome, where women feel that their success is a kind of a fluke and any small thing can topple it completely. When women come up with these limiting beliefs to me, I emphasize again and again that this is not their weakness. It's a structure of centuries of patriarchy that has been there. But you will be surprised to know that when I coach and counsel women, how many of them have these self-doubts which say, how can I think that I'm good looking enough? Maybe he didn't mean it. Maybe I'm just assuming it. Maybe I'm just imagining it. If I bring this up, my reputation will go to pieces. If I bring this up, no one will listen to me. And so many other limiting beliefs and self-doubts that they have, which prevents them from bringing the issue out into the open. And again, the beliefs about hierarchy, that if it is someone senior, then I cannot afford to do it at all. Now, very quickly, I'll come to the gender intelligence part of it. This is such a fun portion to do when we are in a workshop together. Some of you may have attended a workshop with me, but for others, all I can say is that science today knows for a fact that the brains of men and women are wired differently. And that is why I call it the intelligence and not sensitization. Gender intelligence is not only about men understanding women, it is also about women understanding men. And this science is relatively new. It has become known to us only in the last 10, 15 years. So for example, the corpus callosum, the fibers linking the right side and the left side of the brain, they are more in women. So women do this networking kind of a web-like thinking, whereas men are linear thinkers. They go from point A to point B. How does this come into the context of the subject we are talking about today? So for men, sometimes, when we look at the real offenders, sometimes we even in society or in newspapers, when we hear about people who have really committed crimes in this area, we wonder, don't they know the consequences? So the linear thinking may be responsible for that at that point of time, they're so focused in getting the object of desire that they forget and their brain does not show them the consequences. So that's from the male perspective. From the female perspective, what does the web-like thinking do? The web-like thinking makes a go into too many pros and cons, what I've been mentioning in the last 5-7 minutes. What will be my consequences? If I take this up, what will be my consequences? If I object, what will be my consequences? And it was there in the video that we saw a little bit that despite the fact that I'm sure she was sensing that this behavior was not appropriate, but she was still giving the benefit of doubt and she was still trying to say, can I get a new project? Can I get a better opportunity? So that web-like thinking in a woman, which makes her weigh the consequences a bit too much, might prevent her from reporting such cases. What is the answer to that? I think an environment, an organization which provides a lot of psychological safety, which has conversations like the one we are having right now, which has leaders speaking about these things, taking up these examples. You're most welcome to take the examples from here. Taking up these examples and calling them out, that will provide the place of psychological safety of whether it is a man or a woman. If there has been something, an offense done against them, they are free to bring it up. Limbic system is the emotional memory part of the brain, and how it is, on the lighter note, it makes women remember everything of the past. And whenever I say this in a workshop, people really enjoy this, because everybody's experienced that a woman, when she's upset, she's hurt, she brings up the whole story again and again and again. The man looks at her and says, "You've got so much baggage inside you. You've got so much poison inside you." It's not baggage, it's not poison. It's limbic system, 15 times more blood flow in a woman than in a man. So she remembers everything of the past. Now, sometimes it happens that initially when a woman is not objecting or speaking up, but she's uncomfortable, she doesn't like what's happening, it's not forgotten. It's being stored in the limbic system for a long, long time. And then suddenly one day, ask her, "Why did you not say it in the beginning?" So, and we just spoke about all the reasons why she did not say it, but it has not been forgotten, right? The other aspect of the limbic system is that when there is other kind of microaggressions done through bias, through other things, and also the limbic system is stored, and again, it might come up with the wrong representation of being sexually harassed. So that's just to give you a little bit of sense of the brain science. Now, what I'd like to say right at the end is this, that whether it's a man or it's a woman, numbers do play a difference, whether whoever is in the majority or it is people from the LGBTQ community. What really makes a difference in creating a psychological and physically safe space is mutual respect. Nature has made the brains of men and women different in a very, very majestic way. They are meant to complement each other. At one time, they were complementing each other with the man going out to work and the woman looking after the home. Times have completely changed. Many of you have daughters, and you want your daughters to be professionally strong. You want your daughters to be academically strong. The economy needs both men and women in the system. The economy needs, the government needs, countries need, the world needs now equal representation of men and women in the system. Unless both men and women respect each other from a humane point of view, and businesses and governments, till then we continue to have such kind of troubles. The more and more the culture becomes a respectful culture, where we are able to look at our biases. It's not wrong to have biases, but if we are able to reflect on our biases, if we are able to take feedback, then the environment of health that develops automatically takes care of these things. I urge you once again, each one of you, to become sponsors of that change, to become sponsors of that culture. Not only, the work is not only to point out harassment when you see it, the work is to point out bias when you see it. With that, I'll come to an end for my talk. I don't think we have too much time, but if there are questions, both Amber and I are happy to take those questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Neeta. Just before we proceed, I will quickly like to show the ICC data. So please just let me know once my screen is visible. Vidya,
extended leadership team also for the emerging markets region. Neil's been an active supporter of our inclusion and diversity agenda. Neil, if you're still on the call, would you like to say a few words?
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Dr. Kumar and Mr. Rana, thank you for joining us. I believe this is the third session. I sat through the whole thing. I must admit there was never a dull moment. Usually my attention span tends to go away after the first 15 minutes, but I must admit I sat through the entire 1.5 hours. So thank you very much for bringing this very complicated subject and a sensitive subject to much more easier terms for us to understand. Really appreciate that. Now, before I say my words, just want to highlight to everybody in the call, all our employees, as you're aware, at Nivea India, we offer the two employee value propositions pretty much for everybody, and we live and breathe by it. And the first one, as I always keep mentioning to you, our first value proposition to all our employees is that as long as you work with us, and that's critical, as long as you work with us, we provide the highest incremental value to your CV. And that is what my team and I are always looking at doing, whether it being training, whether giving you the best of assignments, whether being it, getting involved in some really complex projects early on in your careers. I think relative to our peer group, that is our best value proposition that we provide. We are not about providing the highest salaries or the highest increments or the fastest promotions. It's all about adding the best increments to your CV. It brings you a long-term career. And I can only promise that as long as you work with us. Once you leave us, then it's somebody else's responsibility. And the second thing is clearly about bringing the best balance of work and life while you work with us. Yes, it is always tough, but we always say we work hard and play hard. And we make sure that when you come to work, when you go back to work, you go back home, we try and provide you the best work and life balance. And in the current COVID circumstances, I often hear that it's become even more tougher than the pre-COVID circumstances, where people are struggling to find where work stops and personal life starts. So, having said that, that's our value proposition, and therefore the entire safety at the workplace, for me, it becomes of paramount importance. We take that extremely seriously, and I'm quite proud that we have a very good record of having managed the entire posh environment at Nivea. But it's always important that we retrain ourselves, simply because the laws change in India, so we have to keep track of what the laws are. And second thing is, we get a lot of new employees, we get a lot of young employees, we got a lot of new employees joining us. So we have to constantly keep ourselves reminded of what is the right behaviors at the workplace. I also want to highlight to you, and you know this, we speak about this very often. One of the challenges that is facing corporate India is that we've got large numbers of young women entering the workforce for the first time. We always had young men entering the workforce for the first time, but in the last 3 to 5 years, the number of young professional women entering the workforce has dramatically increased. And that's something that corporate India has never experienced. And is therefore, with such large numbers entering the workforce, it's always going to be a challenge for people who've been used to a predominantly male workforce. We're also not used to the new gender diversity that we are. Dr. Kumar touched upon it earlier today. It is not just about male and female. And if you're working in the UK, and I keep telling you this very, very important and interesting story, if you go on Facebook and they ask you what is your gender, you get 78 different options. 8. If you don't believe me, ask your friends in the UK to do that. And therefore, even when my daughter tells me about some of the differences between the 78, I tell you, listen, I can't go past the first 10 or the first 12. So there are 78. And therefore, we must also understand that how people identify themselves has also changed dramatically. And therefore, we have to therefore cater to that diversity that is happening in our workplace. And it's not unusual in workplaces that you start seeing a lot more differences than we've seen in the past. So I'm really happy that I hope, Vidya, I'm looking at you, 100% of all employees have taken this course. And Dr. Kumar and Mr. Rana, thank you once again for bringing this up. Having said that, my last request to the two of you is that I thought was a little skewed towards a male focus. I would request you that we bring in more examples from different walks of life. I think therefore, for a predominantly male workforce, they'll also be able to that would be one request to bring in more examples from a variety of different examples. You mentioned about what's happening in Bangalore. I think that might be interesting for because we also have an office in Bangalore. So thank you very much and I appreciate the time that you've spent with us.
Thank
Thanks, Neil. Um, so maybe if you don't mind, Dr. Neeru and Mr. Rana, if you don't mind staying back for a few more minutes, if there are any questions from the audience.
you.
Surely, surely. Absolutely.
Amber, actually, I have one question. So we
Yeah.
discussed this in the previous two sessions as well regarding the false cases. Dr. Neeru kind of touched that might get in resentment and people might file false cases as well. So how do
Yeah.
we really deal with those cases?
Well, to start with, it's true the amount of false cases that we find in courts today. More than 35% of the litigation does not stand any ground when it comes to these cases. When I speak about sexual harassment or offences related to women that I see on a daily basis, and let me start with the trial courts in Gurgaon. Uh, the amount of cases we get from, let's say, Cyber Hub itself is quite shocking in proportion to what I have seen around the country and different parts, right? What can you do about something like this? Well, in first and foremost scenario, there is always a chance of filing a criminal complaint to that effect of falsifying and filing a false FIR under the Indian Penal Code. The second is the reporting of that incident to the magistrate under section 156(3) of the CRPC, where you feel your complaint is not being registered by any modes, whether it is the police or whether it is the ICC or whether it is any other body which has been provided to that effect. Thirdly, I would say, in case you feel you've been aggrieved, the simple format of this is you need to read through your policy first. In case your office policy does not stand in favor of a neutral posh policy in place, then you can hold the organization accountable instead of having a falsified complaint being filed against you. Now, having said that, I would request everybody that do not file false complaints, because in a matter of seconds, whether it is the police or whether it is me as a lawyer, because I talk to 100 people on a daily basis, we'll be able to tell you whether your case is tenable or not. And trust me, you'll have repercussions once you reach and it goes out to the judge, in fact, because judges are now accustomed. What in turn you're doing with this is you're killing the chance and opportunity for the ones who are really, really in need of such a repressal and such a redressal, and blocking the way out for those fellow women. So that would be most of all the scenario that I can suggest to each and everyone out there.
Deepa, I'd like to add a little bit. If the ICC members are fully trained and sensitized to be able to screen such cases, many times one doesn't have to really take the whole legal recourse. It's able to be sorted out there and then, and the person concerned who has filed the false case is given a warning, whatever the situation might be. But ICC members there have to be conversations with them about it.
And lastly, to add up to what ma'am has said, it is always a requirement in case if recording is possible, when you conduct these proceedings, because the power of the ICC committee, as ma'am is saying, is equivalent to that of a civil court. All right. And whatever you take in terms of measures, as she's saying, you can enforce any of the remedies rather than approaching the police, that being the last. And those remedies, in case the employee does not follow, well, you can record that it's legal. There was a marketing manager who refused to do so, and there was a counter case filed against them when he said, I don't want to be recorded in post proceedings. So what ma'am is saying is absolutely true. Any damages, any recourse, there are different ways of dealing with it, provided the ICC committee is strongly considered.
All right. Thank you so much, Mr. Rana. Thank you so much, Dr. Neeru.
Any other questions from the team?
Deepa, if we have time, should I put one?
Yeah, please go ahead.
So this is on a lighter note. How many of you feel that downloading of explicit songs on your laptops in an office space would tantamount to sexual harassment?
They can write in the chat box.
Yeah.
Just a yes or no on the chat box.
Yes, just a yes or a no. All right, guys, 10 more seconds, I suppose.
Yes, mostly we are getting yeses.
Right. So, well, I see a lot of yeses. Well, the answer would be no. Slightly to say this, downloading of songs is not an offense in any case. Yes, downloading of songs and playing it in context into your bay that someone can hear it is a yes, yes. So you can download whatever you want. Do not be spooked by the word obscene when I say it in any context, as long as it's for your self fulfillment and prurient levels, whether it is
You
even
might get,
downloading of songs.
Amber, having said that, this might put you in trouble with the IT department within the
I'm
company.
sure.
Maybe not on Posh.
The VPNs need to be blocked.
I think there was a question. Avasha, I noticed you'd raised your hand. Did you have a question?
So actually, I was trying to answer the question which Mr. Rana, so by raising hand. So
Okay. All right.
All right.
Thanks, Avasha.
Any more questions, or then you would
Amber,
want me
maybe
to
just
put
one
one more?
last one from my side, if you don't
Yeah.
mind. This in Posh, very often when the complaints come, maybe two questions actually.
Yes.
Given the conditioning, given the society that we
Right.
live in, I've come across anonymous complaints, where the person is not willing to reveal.
Sorry, I just lost you guys in between. Sorry. Yeah, I'm back. Sorry, I just lost your question there. Yeah.
I don't know if you got the question.
No, I missed you guys in between. Please tell me.
All right. So I was just asking that how does the POSH Act, the law, treat anonymous complaints where the person is, where the victim, unwilling to reveal their identity? Does the POSH Act recognize the complaint?
Yes, any complaint which is anonymous, it is done in confidence, it is done to a third person, it is done to a relative, is all recognizable. Your identity is a privacy clause which all criminal laws now in India adhere to. So you have the right to keep your identity, in person safe. You don't have to reveal who you are. It is only with respect to testifying when it starts happening that you provide evidence, that you can give a reference after confidence, maybe mid trial, and even not then. But that complaint, if it suffices enough with evidence, with concrete, substance, and has the definition of POSH to it, yes, it is tenable in the eyes of ICC and the law otherwise. In fact, the zero FIR position states that you can refrain from divulging your identity. Even the courts have said that. You have the right to restrain your identity whenever would want in such a scenario where sexual harassment complaints are there.
Thank you. That's very helpful to know. Thank you.
Any other questions from the team? Yeah. So I guess this is it. So thank you. So there is some comment. Let me check. So thank you so much, Dr. Neeru. Thank you so much, Mr. Rana, for being on this call today and taking us through such an informative session. That was really helpful for all of us. And thank you so much for being there. And I will also want to thank all the employees who were able to find time and join us for the session today, despite being such a busy schedule these days. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you so much.
Everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Dr. Neeru. Thanks, Dr.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.